Bournemouth, it's a case of stopping the skid, isn't it? One win in 5. Gary O'Neill obviously took the role and done really well, to be fair, in order to get the role as interim manager. So far as full-time manager, maybe not so. It's funny because me and you were speaking off air, Kevin, and we're like, they're on a bit of a skid. And you're like, Bournemouth, what are the expectations? I mean, let's kind of just look at that first. When they do go on a big run, let's congratulate them. But when they have a little skid, it's kind of to be expected, isn't it?
100% is to be expected. Look, a team who's just come up is favourites to go straight back down. Gary O'Neill's done really well to get them challenging, to get them competing, battling. But when they go on a bit of a slide, you expect it is how quick can you stop the rot? That's the key. If you can stop the rot and then pick a result up, fair enough. Then you can start balancing it out. But going on a difficult run is to be expected at Bournemouth.
Yeah, I guess results are one thing, performances are the other. I thought they looked pretty poor against Palace.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a case of Palace looked really good or they looked poor. I think they only had a couple of chances. I can remember Solanke sort of picking one out, but apart from that was it, wasn't it? And I guess that's probably going to be the most disappointing thing for Gary O'Neill. The performances right now aren't good enough.
And I think he admitted that after the Palace game. I think actually that was the first really poor performance on his watch. First half against Chelsea, probably not great, but he changed the system at half-time, and actually they gave Chelsea a real game in the second half, and maybe were a bit unlucky not to at least get on the score sheet. But there were no redeeming features against Palace. It was just one of those afternoons where you can't really pick out any positives in terms of individual performances. I thought Palace showed a lot more Premier League know-how. They did a job on Bournemouth, to be honest, exploited their weakness at set pieces, which is something that Gary O'Neill is going to need to address with his coaching staff. Both Palace goals came from that avenue. They need help. You look at the squad, and Scott Parker obviously paid the price with his job because he was quite critical of the squad and the lack of transfer activity last summer. He wasn't wrong. He was wrong to voice it because he knew there was a takeover going on, and that was why money wasn't being spent. So I think really he should have just kept his thoughts to himself and probably would still be the Bournemouth manager. But the squad is a championship squad. In principle, they need signings this summer. I know the recruitment team are working hard to try and get that done. The issue is you still have to attract players to Bournemouth. It's not an easy place to get to. It's not London. Yeah. It's not Manchester. They're a team who are in a relegation battle, so you have to try and convince potential signings. Actually, we are good enough to stay in the Premier League. So there's no overnight recipe for success. But I think the fact they're not in the relegation places at this moment in time with that squad, the fact they've picked up results where maybe you don't expect them to, the fact they ran Tottenham close with 2-0 up in that game and he lost by 3-2, I think Gary O'Neill has done a good job. And what was disappointing for me after that game, bearing in mind that he picked them up off the floor, Parker was sacked after a 9-0 defeat at Liverpool. They went on that 6-match unbeaten run. He really got a tune out of those players and instilled some confidence. The fact that some Bournemouth fans on social media were so quick to turn on the manager after one poor performance, that disappointed me.
Yeah. Is it sort of a new manager bounce thing that happened? Again, Crookie talk about that run they went on, maybe some players coming back in from the cold and given an opportunity, and you kind of do get that new manager bounce where everyone they don't think they're doing it, but everyone's given an extra 5%. Has that kind of flatlined a little bit now? Or is it, again, a case of, it's the Premier League. We continually talk about this being the best league in the world. It's going to be difficult at times. You need to readdress it. Fans are going to be excited now. New owners have come in. Maybe there might be a bit of money to spend in January. Is it a bit of everything?
It's a bit of both. I certainly think there's a new manager bounce that happened, and you could see they were winning games. They were winning back-to-back games and looking pretty good. But it's going to balance itself out as the season goes on, because the Premiership is unforgiving and it's full of talent. And you come up against a team, even Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace could expose you on things that, if you're not defending corners right, they're going to expose you. Crystal Palace are a tough team to play against at certain times, and Bournemouth found it difficult to play against them. But it's going to be a hard one to the end of the season. But I think Bournemouth have proven they can do it. But they have to be together.
I know you've been speaking about the Bournemouth and the new ownership, haven't you?
We had Bill Foley on the programme last Friday. Clearly is up for the fight, clearly has grand ambitions, wants to build a new stadium, new training ground, wants to invest in the playing squad. I asked him where he wanted to be in 5 years' time, and he said we want to be not near the top of the Premier League, but certainly in the top half of the table, and an established Premier League club. So I do think the future is exciting.
New owners come in. Let's hope a bit of money is there to spend for Gary O'Neill in the January transfer window. You feel like the club do need a bit of investment to go forward, whether or not it means staying in the Premier League or just going forward as a club regardless.